Good morning, everybody. My name is Ann Soares. I am a fellow Fairhaven resident, and as many of you know, it has been my mission this election cycle to meet and talk with as many candidates running for local office as I possibly can to make my decision an informed decision, and my hope in sharing this content with you is that it helps you make an equally informed decision. Today, I am joined in studio by Mr. Rick Trapilo. He is running for one of two select board seats in the upcoming election. So good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Ann. I want to thank you for having the tenacity to get involved in town politics, for being a town meeting member, for doing this podcast, and hopefully this conversation will enlighten people in the town of Fairhaven to vote for Rick Trapilo, but also hopefully I can convince you to vote for myself. We have a lot to talk about, and I really look forward to our conversation.
We do have a lot to talk about. To provide the proper context for this, well, two things I want to share. I invited every select board candidate to participate in these long-form conversations to give the electorate a side-by-side comparison on the same issues. Two of the three candidates opted to decline the invitation. And out of respect for them, I will defer any additional comment to those candidates. So feel free to reach out to them if you want more insight on that. But we have Rick here.
Glad to be here Monday morning.
So let's get after it.
Thank you.
All right. So for those who may be wondering who you are, some people may be meeting you for the first time as part of this podcast. Can you talk a little bit about your experience, your background?
Sure, with pleasure. I think that's a great place to start because we are here today because of all of our life's experiences and where we started our lives. I was one of 5 children raised by Polish immigrants in Dorchester, in St. Kevin's Parish. And for those who grew up in Dorchester, we are all identified by the parish that we were raised in. We were raised in a beautiful 3-family, 1 toilet, and somehow we all got out to St. Kevin's Elementary School at 8 o'clock every morning. So just wonderful, wonderful parents that I had. They were both hardworking. My dad, after he got out of his service, set up a wonderful, successful business and really instilled in his children the requirement for education, the requirement for hard work, the requirement for saving. Good Lord, Ann, if you left my home without turning off the lights, there was hell to pay. So they grew up in a generation where they went through a world war, they went through a depression, they knew what it was to suffer and to save and to build a family. So I am eternally grateful for the parents I had. With that instillment in their work values and their cultural values, I went off to earn my education, getting my Bachelor of Arts, and then working toward my master's in business administration. My parents were very provincial. They never were on an airplane until they went to see their youngest son, who played professional football, playing a football game for his first professional football game. But in my college careers, I went to a bulletin board for international studies, and I saw this program called World Campus Afloat, International Business, Orange, California, Pepperdine University. And I said, good Lord, I want to try this. I want to get out of my environment. I was growing up in the city, I was working, but I wanted to see what was out in the world. So I was accepted to that program, and it totally changed my life in terms of the opportunities in business, the opportunities in the world, just to see the world as a young man, to go around the country, around the world rather, on a ship to visit different countries, different cultures, different economies. It changed my whole life. So when I got back from that, I said, Rick Trapilo is going to get his master's in business. Started my studies here in Boston. I was recruited to join an excellent firm out in Chicago. Finished my master's in business administration in Chicago, night school and all-day weekends. And that really set the foundation for myself in terms of finance, budgeting, planning, etc. And happily, being a New Englander, a Red Sox fan, Patriots fan, I was recruited again to come back and to be the executive vice president, general manager of a firm based in New Bedford, Mass. So I took that firm from a couple $1 million to in the hundreds of $1 millions with the founder of that firm, and built really a global business. So I was personally in charge of the Americas, US, Canada, Latin America, And in growing that, I was our division president in the Far East. So I had a very successful career there. In the middle of that, raised 3 wonderful children, was a football coach, hockey coach, baseball coach. There was never a dull moment in my life getting off of a plane, running to a hockey event or a football event, what have you, but I loved it. From there, went to a large corporation, Xerox, where I ran a division for them in developing their business for high-end production systems. But throughout my entire life, being raised by the parents I had, and particularly my father, Ian, he was very dedicated. He would always say, we live in America, greatest country in the world. If you want to complain, get involved. And at an early age, I can remember in Dorchester, going out with him, supporting one of his best friends, Bob Quinn, who became our Attorney General. And stuffing at that time, like I'm doing now, out door to door in Fairhaven, and I'll see all of you out there hopefully over the next 3 to 4 weeks, stuffing cards for Mr. Bob Quinn, who became our Attorney General. And ironically, as you know, in life, there are just so many interconnections. His nephew became our district attorney down here, Tom Quinn, who was resigning. And my stepdaughter, Natasha, for many years was an assistant district attorney for him. So we often talked about his Uncle Bob and that. So I've always had the belief of being involved in the community, and I've always worked in terms of volunteering my time, volunteering my efforts to try to make life better for everybody. I've been very blessed with the parents I have, and very blessed to live in this wonderful community, Fairhaven, and this wonderful country we have.
Yeah. And you've just outlined quite a bit of experience, but not everybody that does a lot in their, professional life opts to get into, dare I say, politics. With all the boards and committees and things that there are available in Fairhaven, why the select board of all things?
The select board, and this is one of the reasons I'm running, and I have served on publicly traded boards for IPOs. I've served on privately held boards. They are your set of managers that set the short-term, but most importantly, long-term objectives for the town, for the municipality. I find that vision has been lacking, and it's really transparent. It's really aware to myself with the financial issues that I'm sure we're going to be talking about, that our select board needs business-oriented people to look at the future. How are we going to solve a broken municipal government system? We are running into a real block in terms of our finances. Either the shift is put onto the taxpayers, which were already overburdened, or municipal government needs to innovate. So in business and doing budgets and being an entrepreneur, in addition to the businesses and the large corporations I work for, I have set up 2 very successful businesses, so I know in depth how to make payroll. And in business, you cannot create a 2.5 override to pay your employees. You have to do 1 of 2 things. You have to innovate to come up with new products and services, or you have to make drastic cuts in your business model. I always chose to innovate, because the biggest failure in business is when you ever have to let go of a valued employee. That's a failure in management. So I've always been able to come up with a way to innovate product and services to grow a corporation. So I want to take that same idea to the town of Fairhaven as we're in the middle of these really significant financial challenges, to say, we need to innovate a new business model to fix our broken municipal government system. And myself, I thought long and hard before entering the race to say, what can I bring? And you asked the appropriate question. What I want to bring to this is really a short-term and a long-term solution. Short-term solution, on day 1, if I'm given the privilege to join the board, I would want to set up an efficiency working group. And that would be to look at how do we make our operations better. And I would want to set it up with a group of people, yourself, you're an auditor, you're a finance major. I wanted to set it up with bright people such as yourself across the town to say, how do we work to support our town administrator, who I have great respect for, Mr. Keith Ecke. We're very lucky.
He doesn't have an easy job.
No, he doesn't. And
He really doesn't.
as I always say, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we all should listen twice as much as we speak. But there is no I in team, to use a football, hockey, baseball analogy. You are better with strong people around you. And as a manager, I'd always try to find people better than myself. You have to have confidence as a manager to hire people that can do your job, if God forbid you need them to. So I'd want to set up this efficiency working group to look across all of the departments, schools, police, fire, DPW, to say, how can they do a better job? Either through efficiencies, privatization, innovation, reduction in expenses, etc. So that group I would want to report into Mr. Hickey, because jumping ahead, I'm sure you're going to ask about our upcoming town meeting. I looked at town meeting as a failure in a lot of senses, that we had to go out to ask our taxpayers for an override, that if Mr. Hickey and our executives in the town had this group maybe prior to town meeting, maybe we could have came in with a balanced budget. So I'd want to set up, number one, an efficiency working group. Number two, short-term solution. We are in the state of Massachusetts. We are a very wealthy, overtaxed state. They don't call us Taxachusetts for nothing, right?
We've earned that name.
We've earned that nickname. And part of that is we do have great services. We have great schools, great hospitals, roads, etc. But I want to, on day one, do something that I'll commend Mr. Charlie Murphy, our existing chairman of the select board. He took an idea that I started last year with another gentleman, Mr. Andrew Saunders, to say, there is substantial monies in something called the rainy day fund, almost $9 billion.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money sitting there. And Mr. Murphy, with all of the select persons, wrote a letter to our Senator Montigny. They did that letter in December. That was one letter in. I would want to, on day one, galvanize support on the select board to say, let's ask all of our surrounding towns, let's ask all of the 300 plus municipalities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to sign a petition and send it to our governor and elected officials to say, we need our share of the rainy day fund. We need our increased Chapter 70 funding. We need money out of the general fund. Political leaders tend to listen if there is a swell of people saying, we're tired of being overtaxed. We want our money back to help us. Because that in itself, if we received increased Chapter 70 funding, if we were given just the interest alone from the rainy day fund, or more funding from the general fund in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it would help. Our governor this year, and Mr. Saunders brought it out at one of the joint meetings between FinCom, schools, and the select board,
I saw that.
noted that the governor supported $10 million in watch party money. To me, that is tone deaf with all of the stresses that the Commonwealth of Mass citizens are going through. We've all just been through a very brutal winter. Our heating bills, our electric bills, our insurance bills, everything is through the roof, and now our gas bills. So I thought that was incredibly tone deaf. So part two of my 3-point strategy would be to really say, Governor, elected officials, we need more of our taxpayer dollars that go to Boston back to us.
Right now, the percentage, if I'm not mistaken, is 26%.
Correct.
Of the monies that we send to Beacon Hill.
Right.
We only get 26% back.
Right.
Based on everything I've read and seen.
It's actually, and it's flatlined over year. It's not even kept up with inflation. And then lastly, the third thing that I would want to do is, as I learned, if you're going to take care of yourself, you have to look inwards. You have to take care of yourself first. And the town of Fairhaven needs to do that. We need to do smart economic development, either through utilizing new residential spaces that are not being developed, looking at attracting in new businesses to the community. We have to look at smart ways to grow the economy in the town. not on increasing the 2.5 tax levy, but to add new organic growth to the town. So I really have, as you asked, why do I want to run? I have the business experience, the business ideas to say, this is a business problem. We need business solutions to try to fix the problem for the town versus overtaxing more residents.
Now, I know you've spoken at great length about the efficiency committee.
Yes.
Is that something you can do without full select board approval? How would that be implemented?
I would be one of 5 members. And in making my case to those 5 members who all have different backgrounds, we have an attorney, we have an educator, we have a real estate person, and whoever would be joining me, maybe an educator. I would share to them one comment that was made at one of our joint meetings between FinCom, schools, and select board, and it was from the vice chair of our select board. And in that meeting, I was both extremely critical of that individual, but also very glad that he said it. And he turned and he looked at when they were deciding for the budget override amount. He said, in a bubble, what would you need for an override amount? And our town administrator said, knowing the numbers, and Mr. Hickey knows the numbers, he's very versed at being a town administrator, said I'd need $3.5 million. So the motion was made for $3.5 million. It failed 4-1, and rightfully so, because there was no way any appropriations would be made. I would remind everybody on day one that our job is to prepare for the next town meeting to solve that $3.2 million forecasted budget shortfall. It starts on day one. You're not going to close a gap of $3 million starting in January, starting at town meeting. You have to start on day one.
Right.
So I think everybody after this last town meeting and this last budget process will clearly understand that something has to be done. And if there's a better idea, I'll support it. But I don't think there is a better idea, that we really have to open up across the board, schools, police, fire, DPW, to see how we can do a better job. So I think the board will be very receptive to that. I hope they will be. I'll make an impassioned plea to them, but I'll make a plea based on numbers. And numbers don't lie. We are facing a $3+ million shortage in the upcoming fiscal 28.
There are 3 very expensive unknowns going into the next 12 months. We don't know what's going to happen with the Acushnet education contract.
Correct.
The trash contract is up for negotiation. We really don't have a handle on what's going to unfold with that. The third thing is that there is some rumblings that the developer for the turbines is going to walk away. So we potentially will lose any income associated with that. So the $3.5 million, it, depending on how things shake out, it could be less, it could be more than that. How do you, I know you had mentioned economic development, but how do you navigate all of this with all of those very expensive unknowns in the mix?
You asked the perfect question. When you are guiding a corporation, as I was, you need facts. So what I would do also on day one, and you're a finance person, is I would say to a very astute person, our Ann Carrera, I would say, please, this body needs financial information. And just jumping around a little bit, at town meeting it was also asked, and I'm going to ask it on day one for the select board. We need a dashboard, not extensive 10, 12-page reports. We need a dashboard on 2 items. We need a dashboard on what ifs. And I always ran, as I said earlier, the select board is in charge of year 1, 2, and 3. We need a what if analysis to our budget if the turbines don't happen, if the children don't come into our school systems. How does that impact revenues and expenses? So I would like to have multiple scenarios to say, this is what we're looking at in fiscal year 1, 2, and 3. Let the select board look at it. Not just the select board. Let's have the community look at it. Let's have the town meeting members look at it, because that question was asked at town meeting. Where is our 3-year business plan? So I would want that as a manager, as a select board member, to say, this here is the financial dilemma we're going to be facing. How do we solve this problem? The second thing I would want to look at is, how do we address that shortfall? Where are we going to look at cost savings, revenue increases, etc.? So first you got to understand where you are in terms of the shortfall, because that's going to be happening very, very quickly on day one. So you don't have a lot of time to turn a big ship like the town of Fairhaven in terms of coming up with a potential shortfall of $3-4 million in. So good question.
Yeah. The other thing that's come up quite a bit, the town administrator pointed out on any number of occasions that the residential tax rate is about half of the commercial tax rate right now. You spoke a little bit about economic development. One of the things, the sentiments, if you will, that I've gathered from the town is that nobody wants us to turn into a city. The challenge, if you will, I'm also a small business owner. The challenge, of course, is that with a tax rate being at over $18 per thousand, how do you attract either small developers, small business? How do you attract that portion of people to come in and invest in Fairhaven?
You need an economic developer. You need a tourism director that we don't have in the budget any longer. We have a strong economic group of people working for economic development. I just went and spoke in front of them on a subject matter for Atlas Tax, something that I'm working on. But you need to show the value of our residents' ability to build an economical home on the residential side. But on the commercial side, we need to attract in people into the plazas. I was part of, and on the planning board, the group that really put forward the 40-hour developments, the right to develop the 2 main plazas in some of the waterfront areas. To date, nothing has happened
Nothing's been
yet
done.
to do that. And there was a tremendous concern in the town. We're going to have high rises, but nothing has been done to maximize really those 2 major plazas that could be a source of generating additional revenue for the town. So that has to come from your planning board, that has to come from economic development. And you have to spread the word. So right now we're not doing any marketing. In business, you know it, you have manufacturing, you have marketing, you have sales. We're not doing any marketing or sales in the town of Fairhaven.
The TA
Across.
has pointed that out.
Right,
So
we're not
we don't
doing
do a
any.
good job at all.
We don't let anybody know the values of our community, the values of developing a small business in our community, the developing homes in our community, etc. So we need to do a much better job of just spreading the word. Good question.
It's really interesting, the times that we're facing right now. And again, I guess getting back to all things budget and town meeting, you have come out very openly and said you're not in favor of the override.
That is correct.
At this point in time. Someone had pointed out at town meeting that there was some conversation about reducing the override number down to rounding numbers, but I'll say 140,000 versus the 640,000 that was initially proposed. And the comment was, we won't want to give the illusion to people in town that we're doing better than perhaps we actually are. What are your thoughts on that? Considering that there is sort of a trust issue with government right now and the townspeople, do you think that was the right call to just put the whole thing out there?
I do. I think it was right to put it out there because what I'm hoping, Ann, is that it's a wake-up call to town leadership. And I'm hoping that everybody comes out and votes on June 9th to say we are overtaxed, overstressed in our personal lives, and you town leadership do a better job with $63 million that we give you. And the misnomer with taxes in our town and everybody's tax bill, the people of Massachusetts put in a break that allows government to increase in taxes more. It said, stop spending, you have up to 2.5%. Taxes don't have to go up every year by 2.5%. If we were doing a really good job, think about it. Maybe they wouldn't increase it at all. But every year, year after year, it goes up 2.5%. So the increase was not only on 2.5%, which we're going to get, but it was more. And I thought that, and I believe firmly that that is wrong. And I do not support that. In watching the FinCom meetings, which they did not approve, the number for the schools and other departments, I watched the FinCom meetings, I watched the joint meetings between schools, select board, and FinCom. And I noted a real difference in terms of the different objectives that Mr. Hickey was trying to achieve. And I was satisfied when he said, schools, we achieved your net school spending. And it was kind of a nebulous number that there was some give and take going back and forth between schools, him, and the FinCom. But he did say, okay, I did my job, I got you $18,000. But conversely, our animal shelter was knocked out wrongly. They were used as a sacrificial lamb, which they never should have been. And we lost the tourism. So he was able to achieve the 18 for the schools. And I said, okay, that's good. I would have just said then that that is a end of story. But to go to the taxpayers right now and to say, with all of your expenses going up, we're going to give the schools a cushion of some $463,000. I thought that was not right. I thought it was unjust. We all love our kids. We all know that education is the foundation of the community. It's the foundation to making a better society. But we also have to worry about all the people that I've met going door to door. And I've had people ask me the first question saying, Rick, please tell me you're not going to favor increasing my tax bill, because I really don't think I can afford to live in this town. Now, I've heard the argument, well, our tax rates are lower than other communities. Yeah, maybe that's true, but that's why people live here. And I'm sure in every other community in Massachusetts, families with children, senior citizens, people with fixed incomes, they're struggling. There is a genuine concern with making ends meet. So I don't appreciate how the budget was done. I'm very glad that it went to an override, and I'm hoping they get a very resounding, clear message that no, make ends meet like we have to do in our private lives. We do not have the luxury in our private lives of going out and getting additional monies. I can't set up a GoFundMe page to cover my extra expenses. I have to either cut my expenses or work harder. And the town needs to do that. They either need to do a better job at town governance or cut their expenses. So yeah, I'm totally opposed to any override amount, Ann, completely.
Just an observation that
Please.
I've made, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm just making observations. It seems like committees host joint meetings only around times of budget. There's a lot of conversation. So, you know, recently we saw the school committee come together, the finance committee come together, select board come together. Is there an opportunity? My experience in business has been when you get the right people in the room out of the gate, you get further faster, because at least you may not have all the details worked out, but at least you're heading in the same direction. Is there an opportunity to pull the select board together, pull the planning committee together, and pull maybe the town administrator together and whomever else might be appropriate to, you know, on day one, if the town elects you to the select board, to say, listen, let's have a conversation. We have financial issues. We have to come together collectively and move this ball forward. Can we at least get into some agreement as to how we're going to move forward so that we can all, you know, go back to our committees and work on this and then come together periodically? Is there an opportunity for that? Why doesn't that happen? And am I wrong?
You're not wrong, Ian. We were, as a town, managed very fiscally conservative by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jeff Osage. Great guy. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him.
He's before my time, I think, but
Yeah,
yes.
before me too. When I met Mr. Osage for the first time, I saw him, and he says, "Hey, Rick, Jeff Osage," and I said, "Jeff Osage, your name's on a building in town." He said, "Yes." I said, "Jeff, typically they do that when you've passed." He says, "I know, Rick." He says, "I'm still here. I'm healthy,
He's got
etc."
a unique owner.
Yeah, exactly. He had, but it was an honor because he ran the town so well and he was so respected. To do that, and on day one, we have to ask our financial people in the town to give us a financial model. They have to very clearly say to the select board, to the accountants in the town, to everybody, folks, we are looking at fiscal 28 being $3.5 million short. How are we going to solve it? Are we going to put our heads in the sand to the next town meeting and look at massive reductions? Or are we going to try to solve the problem? And if we're going to solve the problem, we need to work together. We need to use that word collaboration. We all have to work together. We can't pit schools against DPW. We can't pit schools against police and fire. We have to look at what's best for the town. And we have to look at providing the services that we need, the education that we need, but we have to do it within the financial revenue we have as a town. I mean, we can't live beyond that. So that's why I keep coming back to with all of the work that those individual department manager does and Mr. Hickey does, having this group of independent, very professional people versed in finance, accounting, budgetary issues, work across all of these departments to say, hey, here's some opportunities for regionalization, for privatization. I mean, these are very sensitive subjects to bring up within departments, but it's time we have those conversations. It's time we talk about what happens when those students leave from our community and go to another school. So that has to happen on day one in. Absolutely has to happen. The other thing that I did take from a town meeting, and I'm sure you have the same feeling as myself, there was this conversation on free cash. Remember those discussions?
Do. There's a lot of them.
Right.
A lot of them.
Free cash for me, ladies and gentlemen, is a misnomer. Free cash is not free cash. Free cash comes from your taxpaying dollars and my taxpaying dollars that have not been appropriated to spend. So we have accumulated in this year's warrant, it's approximately $4 million in taxpayers' unused money. Because I don't like the term free cash, because nothing is free. So that money was there. So what I was equally disturbed in this town meeting is that we're going to the populace, to the community, to seniors, people on fixed income, and saying, we want you to approve this override, but we're also going to go on out and spend almost $2 million on capital improvements. Now, maybe some of those are absolutely positively justified.
There's a lot of debate around those capital improvements. There's a lot of debate around
And
them.
there should be. In my private life, and I'm sure in yours, if I can't pay my electric bill, if I'm short, I'm not going to go out and put a new roof on my house. I'm not going to go out and remodel a car. I'm going to say, I'm going to hold that money, like I was taught by those good Polish parents I have, to put money under the mattress for a rainy day. I'm going to save that money. So I found it contradictory that on one hand, we're asking the residents of this town to say, please fund an override, but we're going to spend, and I believe, Ann, the number was approximately $1.9 million in capital improvements. And Jeff Osage, I will commend him, at the beginning of the meeting, asked for a fiscal plan for 3 years. Another gentleman that I'd like to talk to you about asked for a balance sheet for the town. And then Jeff also talked about the usage of free cash or reserve cash to take care of the short-term problem. For myself, in analyzing the pros and cons of using monies from our cash taxpayers' non-used money. I would have been more prone if it was on the select board to say, let's use monies to help with economic development, with police and fire, with tourism, with our animal shelter, to keep those going. If I was Mr. Hickey, and if I could have advised Mr. Hickey. In business, and there is a common message given to every chief executive. When you come into a new corporation, you spend time and you look around. You take maybe up to a year before you make dramatic decisions. And I would have hoped you would have taken just a little bit more time. And I would have looked at this cash reserve for some one-time supplemental payments to fund budgets as a way out. And I would have held that $2 million, knowing that next year we have a potential to be short $3 million. Because in taking all of those cash reserves and looking at the warrant, we're going to be left with the 2% by state mandates in terms of a reserve left. So I was like, that bothers me that we're not only asking for an override, but we're spending this much in capital improvements.
Generous to the town administrator. He was hired, and dare I say, went right into budget season. He didn't have a whole lot of time to breathe.
I take my hat off to God bless Mr. Hickey for wanting the job, because I'm sure he knew what we were facing. He's done a wonderful job.
And the other thing that he pointed out, which I respect him for, there was a lot of discussion about whether we're asking for a small override or something 2-3 years out. And he was very cautious and said, I'm not comfortable asking for any more money because I don't know what I'm dealing with right now. So to your point about taking the first year to, have a look around, it seems he's signaling that that's what his intent is to do, so that he can have a more intelligent conversation, if you will, about where we really are before having going to the taxpayers, if you will, and asking them for more money next year. I want to shift a little bit to the turbines.
If I may, just one more thing.
Yeah, of course.
You being a finance manager, the other good point that was brought up at town meeting was a gentleman asked for the balance sheet, and Ann produced it. The second piece of information I would ask from Ann on day one would be our financial projections, but also our balance sheet. And not a balance sheet that you as a financial manager would understand.
Balance sheet.
We have an audited balance sheets, but you really want a dashboard. You want, for instance, when I get my blood test results from my physical, you get this nice little dashboard. You get green light, green light, green light, red light, a little cholesterol, maybe too much. You want a dashboard to say, what are the trends going forward for the next 3 years? And that's very important, because when you take your assets minus your liabilities, you want to see, as you know, is the trend going downward? Is it steady? Is it going upward? I would venture to guess which way our town is going. So you want to, as a select board member, because you're really looking at the town's financial decisions. You want to know where your revenue is going, and you want to know how your balance sheet is going in terms of the town's operations and your liabilities and your assets. And then you want to know the last thing that we talked about, and I apologize for going back to it.
No.
You want to know what your cash reserve is for emergencies. So I would want those three things clearly understood, and I'd want them available to the select board, but to everybody in the town, so that they know where their town's financial position is.
And I'm glad you said that, because do you see that as a means of rebuilding the bridge of trust between government and the people that...
Absolutely. And the more information we can put in the hands of the community, and we have a lot of smart people in that town. We may not all agree, but people agree with numbers that are quantified, that are audited, that show the picture, We live by our checkbooks, by our investments, by our personal lives. And people want to see that clearly from town government. Those three items: your financial forecast, what your balance sheet looks like, and then how much cash do you have available to make all of these obligations. So that's absolutely fundamental to building trust. And the segue question that you just asked about the windmills, that is a clear and present financial issue.
I mean, not only a financial issue, but the windmills present an interesting conundrum, if you will, for the town, because we've become reliant on the income,
Right.
but due to the lease and other things. There are people in town that truly believe that the windmills are our way forward in terms of energy. People that live near those turbines are not having a good time at all. I mean, there are reports, the Board of Health has been inundated with reports from people that live immediately nearby. This is strictly hypothetical because we don't know what the final answer is going to be. But if the developer, dare I say, gives us the keys back and says, this is all your problem, where do you see that? How do you see that playing out?
That's an excellent question. I spoke on behalf of the neighbors that live near those turbines, and I actually got up and I was very passionate. I was actually angry when I heard a young boy, probably in his 10 or 12 years of age, get there to say, I can't sleep at night. I have the issue with the flicker, with the noise, etc. So for myself personally, those windmills should never have been put into an existing community. Mm-hmm. That was a mistake, and that's going back. Going forward, as I've researched, the developer was to set aside money. And I believe that the developer is going to pull out of those windmills. They're not being maintained. He's missed his time to put in for renovations for those, etc. So the town is going to be very interested to see. We may lose that revenue, but we're going to be faced with the challenge that how do we take those windmills down?
Gloucester just did it. It does not look like an easy process at all.
It's approximately maybe $400,000 to $500,000, I've heard. Now, hopefully, there was a contract made at the outset of this that would have put those monies assigned in an account. But I believe that the monies that are available to do that contractually, it's about $18,000. So we may not only be losing the revenue for the windmills, but we may be facing a financial issue with how do we get those windmills down? So again, being a business person, you better start innovating and coming up with some ideas prior to that problem happening. Could we utilize that site for solar? Mm-hmm. Could we utilize it for some other type of revenue generating source? I don't know. But we darn well better start looking at that today because that problem's facing us. Mm-hmm. Those windmills are not producing energy now. Mm-hmm. The developer, there are serious issues with. Mm-hmm. And there's some big financial obligations, with the loss of revenue, but also taking those down in. So you bring up a huge point that is going to impact the budget. And if we go back to the budget again, and you look at that 3-year forecast, that's something that has to be factored in. Worst case scenario, best case scenario in terms of how is that going to impact us in either fiscal 28, 29, or 30. And you have to plan for it. Mm-hmm. And you have to try to say, okay, here's a solution. You don't wake up in the morning and say at town meeting, oh, we're short $300,000-$400,000. What are we going to do? You have to start planning for those events now because they're known. Mm-hmm. Great question.
And I imagine, and I would never wish this upon anyone, but in light of recent events, I mean, we've had situations here in Massachusetts where the turbine blades we've had issues with turbine blades falling.
Yes.
I don't know that we have figured out what the source of those incidents were. But again, going back to people that live in the vicinity of these things, I mean, they have to be thinking about that. There is. What if one of these things falls?
I've met with him, and he's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, John Mathia. He publishes information on that all the time, and one of his recent posts showed a blade coming down over in Bourne. And God forbid that came down in a heavily populated area. It's adjacent to the bike path. I mean, I take my bikes, my wife and I, from our home, and we go by those. That's a frightening thought if one of those blades ever were to fail. And I would hope that the developer would be responsible enough to say, I'm not going to allow that to cause any more harm to the community, and would do the right thing, because that developer is part of a huge conglomerate, billion-dollar organization.
Interesting.
And I'm sure they have separated themselves fiscally to protect themselves, but they should do the right thing if they're not going to continue that operation to take them down for the town of Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the right thing for corporate America to do.
I would think so, but you know, there's some new and developing discussions about what's happening with Vineyard Wind. So I don't know.
I don't know. For me,
we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, for me, that's not a strong technology. I mean, there's just so many more things out there that have been developed recently that would provide us more of a economical, constant stream of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hope we can come together and figure out what that is.
But again, that's prior planning to create a solution.
Yes. All right, so water. We have just recently...
Are we talking about drinking water or water that goes into the harbor? There's a couple different issues with water in our community.
There sure is. So we just got our water bills. Again, this conversation is aptly timed for a number of reasons. And for the citizens of Fairhaven, we've just paid our first installment on the $70 million water treatment plant. Something that's very, very interesting about that is that Fairhaven has made an investment in cleaning up the water and getting the nitrates out of the water, but our neighboring community is not. And for anyone that is deeply concerned about the environment, this in my humble opinion, should be a ride or die issue. I'm going to open it up to you to talk a little bit about that and what your approach is going to be if you're elected to resolve that. I imagine that regardless of whether or not you're elected, I don't want to overstep you, but you're going to continue to fight that fight regardless.
Absolutely am. I became aware of growing up in Dorchester Inn. There is this beautiful song up in the Boston area, Love That Dirty Water.
Mm-hmm.
That was a true statement that I'd swim in a beach called Carson Beach, and I didn't know how polluted it was until I went for a swim down the Cape.
My dad grew up in that area, so I have heard stories about it. It's remarkable no one has a third eye or...
Right. It's unbelievable. So moving down here, living in our beautiful coastal community of Fairhaven, I'm listening to the radio and I'm hearing one of our select persons speak at the time that our shellfish beds are closed. Our beach was closed over in Clark's Cove, and they may not be able to do the Buzzards Bay swim. And I'm saying, what's going on? Researched it and come to find out that the city of New Bedford still, through something called Combined Sewer Overflow System, and it's no one's fault today. They have a wonderful mayor, Mayor Mitchell, an absolute gentleman, good person, has inherited this 100-year-old sewage system, which basically, for those who don't know, when it rains more than probably a quarter of an inch, dumps raw waste, chemicals, plastics, etc., from people's homes and sewers on the streets into the inner harbor and outer harbor, some 27 outflow areas. On average, Ann, that is about 600 to 800 million gallons of waste contaminants going into the inner and outer harbor. So, in researching it and being part of our planning board, I was nominated to serve on SERPED, and I was on the Environmental Commission. I have served on the New Bedford Fairhaven Harbor Plan. I have said, how can this irony happen? I said, it's complete hypocrisy to make a little town like Fairhaven, 16,000 people, fund $70 million to treat our nitrogen, upgrade our wastewater treatment plant, when right across the bay, a mile, same harbor, they're dumping nitrogen and raw waste into the water.
Is that why the shellfishing has been closed for quite some time? I mean, I imagine, yes.
Absolutely it has been, because after it rains, the water is dumped in, it goes into the beds, it goes into the harbor, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. I look at the beaches that we have on the island, on West Island. I look at the beaches that New Bedford has, that Dartmouth's have. So I was very vocal, and I was able to achieve by really being a pain in the neck to everybody, the city of New Bedford, Fairhaven, Dartmouth, to have a meeting about a year and a half ago with Buzzards Bay Coalition, the city of New Bedford, representatives from Marion, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, myself at that time, select person Powers went to say to the city of Bedford, what are you going to do? And they basically said, well, it's a funding issue. We need $1.2 billion. And I said to them,
$1 billion?
Yes.
With a B.
A
Holy
B.
cow.
It's $1 billion to fix that. And I said to them, okay, maybe the taxpayers of the city of New Bedford can't, but you need to start advocating for federal funding. You need to do something. Because I personally, Ann, went over to Providence, Rhode Island. And as you drive into Providence, Ann, when you take the fork to head into the city or left to continue on to New York, you look out to your left and you see all those tanks out there and the windmills. That is called the Narragansett Bay Commission. That is their wastewater treatment plant. What they did to save Narragansett Bay is they recognized that they were doing the same thing as the city of New Bedford. They developed a holding tank that when it rains, the plant can't keep up with that much water going in from their CSO. They divert the water into a cauldron, into a holding tank, and then they process it after the rain finishes. Fall River has done that. Pawtucket has done that. So 3 neighboring communities have come up with the will to do it and the monies to do it. I see no reason why the city of New Bedford, with all of the monies we have in the state, all the federal funding, can't do it. So I brought those solutions to the meeting. And that's been a year since. This week, appropriately that you're asking it, Ann, there is a meeting in the city of New Bedford at the library to talk about updates to their CSO mitigation plan. And I know it's doing it to inform the public, but there is no serious investment as yet. But I will give a huge shout out and an accolade. I met with Senator Montigny's administrative staff leader, who said that the senator has put forward a bill to secure $2 billion in funding for the South Coast in terms of our water and our sewer discharge. So Senator Montigny has really been at the lead for me in terms of recognizing this issue. I was up at the State House this past summer and spoke on behalf of SERPED in the town of Fairhaven to say, hey folks, we need funding to correct this problem. In the Boston area, and they have created something from Winthrop over to Hull, if people are familiar with that Bay Area, called the Mass Water Resource Authority. So all those communities have grouped together to say, we're going to take care of a wastewater treatment plant and the quality of our water. So again, going back to the town of Fairhaven, my concept for regionalization, perhaps to solve this issue for the city of New Bedford, we need to do some type of regionalization to help them fix their problem, which is affecting us. So that is a huge, huge problem that has to, in a coastal community, get remediated as quickly as possible, Ann.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you think about all of the rules and in other words, if I was to build something on the waterfront in Fairhaven, the level of scrutiny that I would go through to build something.
Good Lord.
So the idea that we have literally a neighboring community that's just dumping stuff into the harbor is wild.
It's hard to believe. When I attended the last New Bedford Fairhaven meeting, they got a little agitated with myself because I brought up the point that we have something called the Buzzards Bay Swim. And happily it used to happen between Fairhaven and New Bedford. It was canceled. No, it wasn't canceled. Wrong choice of words. It was held, but they moved it quietly over to Wareham because they didn't want to take the risk of having to cancel it like they did the prior summer after a heavy rainfall.
Interesting.
They couldn't, listen to this, they couldn't have the swimmers go into the water after a rainfall to conduct the annual Buzzards Bay swim. So the solution was, and a good solution because I wouldn't jump in that water. No way. No way. They moved it to Wareham, farther away from the discharge of the water. The other thing for people to know, we have an excellent DPW manager, Mr. Vinny Furtado, 5-star person. He took over the issue for our water, our drinking water. And I know there's been a lot of concern in our town for brown water. The historical problem with that is when Mr. Furtado took over, and we share it with Mattapoisett in Fairhaven, there was really a neglect in funding for the filters, basically, that are used in the plant. Some 150 of these very, very expensive filters. So when they failed, they failed. So Mr. Furtado, in getting state funding, etc., has been able to upgrade that plant, put in all these new filters. I attended one of his meetings at the library in Fairhaven recently. All of that upgrading has been done to our water treatment plant. He's put in a new UV filtration system to help purify our water. So our drinking water should be good. However, there are still parts of our town that have this brown water issue, that what Mr. Furtado says, and when I had a private meeting with him this past week, he says, please, if you hear of somebody, have them call me. Have them call me so we can go out to their home, we can look at the issue to fix it. So Vinny Furtado is very responsible for our drinking water, but also the wastewater treatment plant. And also a meeting with Vinny, just as an update to the residents, that wastewater treatment plant will be online for us next July. So it's almost nearing the completion. I mean, if anybody ever wanted to see it, it's as immense as the Big Dig. It's huge. What's been done there.
Well, it ought to be for $70 million. No disrespect, but it's a lot of money
lot of money. It's a lot of money to treat it, but there's a tremendous amount of science in it, and also the science in it, the new energy that's going to be needed to do the chemistry process that Vinny explained to me, and he's a bright guy, went way over my head, for the extra gas, the power, the people, etc. There is an ongoing operational expense to that plant that we have to budget in. So we're lucky to have a gentleman like Vinny Furtado in the town, but yeah, we're paying quarterly now for a significant increase in our water and sewer rates.
And to go back a little bit to the harbor issue, let's assume that the city of New Bedford gets their funding, they do what they need to do to remediate their issue. Do you anticipate a cost to clean up that bay?
There are costs going on right now to take care of other issues in the bay, from some unfortunate chemical dumping historically from plants with PCBs in there. So the federal government is working on those. For the dumping that they're doing on sewer, etc., I would hope that they would do something in there and to dredge it, to clean it, because we have marinas, we have a beautiful harbor front. And as we talk, Ann, about economic development, one of the things that I worked on was this 40R development. Think about how New Bedford has revitalized its waterfront. Wouldn't it be amazing if the town of Fairhaven, could do something with its waterfront to bring in more tourism, to bring in maybe some restaurants, something there to create revenue. But to have that developed, the fundamental is to have clean water. Clean water.
Right.
So one hand washes the other. If we take care of the water, make it palatable for people to swim in, jump off their boats, enjoy it, go to a restaurant without having to close your nose from the horrific odor, then we'll have there as a community something to be proud of.
And then just from a sheer environmental perspective, I mean, going back to folks that really care deeply about the environment, I mean, you have sea life and you have a whole ecosystem in that bay too that is, I'm sure, suffering tremendously.
Of course they are. The shellfishing. And I said to the leadership in New Bedford, I've said to our elected officials, the hypocrisy of having New Bedford being the epicenter for Massachusetts with installing wind turbines, whether you're for or against them, I'm not in favor of them. How can you be doing something called wind turbines to help the environment, but you're not taking care of the water? It doesn't make any sense. It's an interesting contradiction. Yeah, sure. It certainly is. That's a great word. It is a very polite word. It's an interesting contradiction. Yeah. You mentioned the waterfront.
Yes. And I had a conversation about the waterfront with one of the planning board candidates. If you've had the opportunity, as I'm sure you have, to travel down to Cape Cod, a lot of these beautiful small communities, for example, Chatham, I'll use that as an example. They have, and if you blink, you'd miss the whole center of that particular community. But it's not all that different from
Right.
what we experience here in Fairhaven. Do you see that as a real opportunity? Because I could imagine, the ice cream shop, the gift shop, the
That would be the
restaurants,
dream.
all
Absolutely.
along that main street, and people just people are going to come for me over the parking. I understand parking would be an issue, but once you resolve the parking, there's a beautiful opportunity there for people to enjoy if we do our part and promote and advertise and get people interested in doing that. Do you agree with that, or
200%. It's beautiful. That's part of economic development. We live on Buzzards Bay. We're a coastal community. From the Inner Harbor over to West Island, that is a natural treasure for us. We have Fort Phoenix. That
Mhm.
whole area, we should do something to attract people in from the entire Commonwealth, from people from out the United States. But yeah, let it start in the harbor with ice cream shops, with restaurants, just to have people bicycle in. I mean, it doesn't get more beautiful than that. I've walked
Mhm.
the area, I biked the area. It's absolutely pristine, and
Mhm.
it should be all the better to bring in revenue to the town, but also families to the town to enjoy that area.
And I'll point out that it's not terribly windy there.
It gets a little windy
So,
out of Fort Phoenix,
so I mean, a lot, that Main Street
right?
corridor is not terribly windy. So
Right.
truly, you could enjoy it without feeling like you needed to, bring a parka in
You
the middle
you
of July.
but you still do need. I always bring a sweat when I go to off the hook. I always bring a sweatshirt because it still gets a little chilly with the water.
Yeah,
And after this winter, I don't know whether the water's ever going to warm up really.
yeah. No,
Um,
that's a fair point.
yeah.
It's a fair point for sure. Um, Before we move on to a more fun segment, I guess for you, is there any one subject or any last thing that you want to talk about that we didn't cover? We covered a lot of ground, but
And really, as a candidate for the select person's office, the challenges we face are fiscally oriented, and I think I'm uniquely qualified for that, bringing my business experience to the board. So I really want to set the discussions from day one and looking at long-term planning for our financial future, what our balance sheet is, and then what's the solution. Let's know where we're going, and then let's look at providing a solution. And that's what a select board should do. We should not be involved in town politics. We should be working for the best financial future for 16,000 people in the community.
mhm. I don't know anyone that would disagree with that. I think especially coming out of town meeting,
Right.
I follow a number of I don't know how many town social media pages there are. I think I follow three of them. There may be more. I don't know. That seems to be for sure the overwhelming sentiment. How are we going to get this town back on track?
Correct. And how are we going to
Financially?
work? How are we going to work together? And I think when everybody sees the numbers, they'll sense the magnitude of the problem and then say, okay, we can either put our heads in the sand or we can start working on day one for a
Mhm.
solution. And I believe that there is far more strength in numbers to work in a solution. That's why I'm proposing this working group. That's why I'm proposing just opening the kimono, let everybody know what our financial plans are, what our balance sheet is,
Mhm.
what our cash reserve is, give people the information so we can understand it and then come up with a solution.
Mhm. And those conversations, by the way, aren't going to be easy.
No,
They
that
will, but these problems are very complex, and I think it's easy to oversimplify these things
yes,
by putting out, dare I say, blanket state. Live within your means. They just throw things out there, and that's not at all to suggest that I don't think we should be spending our money wisely. But as I was sharing with someone else at town meeting, I said, sometimes you got to get a second job because the money that you bring in with the rise in costs and everything, I mean, we're all experiencing it as individuals. The town is also experiencing that, and I think it's important for people to recognize that. But to your point, okay, how do we manage it going forward? Because
correct.
the conversation doesn't get prettier
No, it
next year,
doesn't.
year
And what you
after, and the
said,
year
just
after.
getting a second job. I've knocked on so many people's doors, people on fixed incomes. They're not retired.
Yeah.
They're out working again
I see
to
them at the
make
grocery
to
stores
make ends meet.
begging.
To make ends meet. And it's only going to get worse if we don't help them.
Mhm.
It's only going to get worse if we don't help them.
Well,
So
hopefully the pool, whoever gets elected to the select board, hopefully they will recognize the challenge, come together, and work for the greater good of
yep,
everybody
I hope
else.
so.
Yeah,
I truly do hope so, Ann.
yeah, because we live in a beautiful community, so I hope they can come together and solve it in a way that benefits all of us.
Right.
So, all right, on to the fun stuff.
This has been fun so far. I've enjoyed it.
We've spent a lot of time talking about a lot of heavy issues, but I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes giving people an opportunity to learn a little bit about you outside of work and politics and all that stuff. What are you passionate about outside of the world of politics and your business life?
That's a great question. That's a very reflective question. Family. Family first. Have wonderful grandchildren. This past weekend, I went to my youngest grandson's Max Holy Communion. I have a wonderful wife, Margaret, who is a very successful woman-owned business here in the South Coast community for the past 30 years. Great children, awesome friends. I love sports. I played sports.
You
football,
mentioned the Red
hockey.
Sox.
I'm a little disappointed with the Red Sox this year. The owner needs to either invest or sell. I'm being a little negative, but maybe we'll come back. But I love football, love hockey, love the Celtics. Unfortunately, our Celtics and Bruins are out. But I 4th of July at the Trapilo household, where I love to barbecue. We have wiffle ball games going on, football games going on, volleyball games going on. I stay active and stay healthy. I shared with you, and my youngest brother was a great athlete. Nowhere near was I as good as athlete than him. He made it to the professional level. But we as four brothers would compete like hell, basketball, football, hockey with one another. So I just love being out there and engaged. I mean, it keeps your body healthy. It keeps your mind healthy. I'm active at St. Joseph Church. We've got a great father there, Father Mikey. I just love our community. I love being involved. I believe life is a gift. I've lost my four brothers, and I often say, why me? Why am I here? So I get up every morning, hit my knees, and say, I'm going to make this the best day ever. So I enjoy life. I'm having a ball. And I asked my wife and children, I said, listen, Dad wants to get involved in the community. I want to run for select person. And they said, do it. That's your passion. So I have the full commitment and support from my family, but I love it. I love being out there meeting people. You meet so many wonderful people. You know, we only hear the negative in the news, but when you get out there and you knock on doors and you meet people at Stop and Shop at the post office, we have so many wonderful people in this community. So I'm hoping being part of the select board, I can bring some enthusiasm. For me, my glass is always overflowing. I am an eternal optimist. I believe in people. I believe in good results. I'm enjoying life, Ann. I'm blessed to be living in our community. Blessed to be healthy like I am now, and really look forward to a great election coming up in June. If I'm honored to be given the seat, and to doing the best I can with all of my experience in my life. So great question.
What are some of your favorite spots to visit, either in Fairhaven or, well, I'll focus on Fairhaven, but if you stray to another South Coast town, we won't hold it against you.
Are we talking about restaurants?
Anything.
Anything? Well, you didn't get to be this size with not like going out to eat. I love Olivia's, the pasta house. You can't beat Riccardi's on a Friday night when you've got nothing cooked to come home, get a couple pizzas. So I love our restaurants. They've done a wonderful job. I love to pick up the bike path. I live out in Squanicket Neck, so my wife and I will bike down, and we're on the bike path, which is beautiful. West Island is absolutely a gem. It's cherished. We have a little beautiful dog, Starlet, that we take out to West Island and walk. And if you ever want to have solitude and to clear your mind, go for a walk along the beach in the wintertime out at West Island. It is absolutely beautiful.
It's a small little quaint spot.
It's
It really
a gem.
is.
It's a gem. So I love doing that in the town of Fairhaven. I love to, in all sincerity, leaving some of our Atlas TAC meetings or leaving meetings from the select board. when you walk out the doors from our town hall at night, especially at the Christmas season,
Mhm.
and you just see that beautiful downtown village. It takes you back to the early 1600s, and there's no better feeling of belonging to a community than seeing that downtown village. And that's something to fight for that future for not just myself, but for our children and their children to
Mhm.
enjoy that type of a beautiful community that we have in the town.
There's
of
a lot of
Fairhaven.
history in those buildings in the
Oh my God,
downtown area.
tremendous.
It's the fact that we invest in maintaining those and keeping them up is really,
And we need
it's
to.
really something.
And we need to. So, yeah, we have so many gifts to be thankful for living in Fairhaven and living in here in the state. So, hopefully, try to make it a better community, more fiscally responsible, to bring some common sense where it's not common anymore, and to enjoy life.
Yeah, exactly. What does a Sunday afternoon look like for you?
Oh, I have to ask you a question. What time of year are we talking about? If it's the fall,
Ooh,
if it's the fall, it's football.
touche.
Football. I have the grill going. I might be out in Chicago. My brother's son. He made it to be drafted by the Chicago Bears. So
Oh wow.
I'm kind of torn between the Bears and the Patriots. So if it's in the fall, it's absolutely watching some football, doing some cooking. I make up incredible meatballs and lasagna. If it's the summertime, definitely on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
You can get me to the beach at 10 in the morning, roll me over at 1, roll me back over at 5. I'm a beach person. I know the sun's not good for you, but after years of in the sun, so in the summertime, I am a beach person. I love to be near the ocean, and that comes from my dad and parents. In the wintertime, I don't know, depends on the day.
Mm-hmm.
If it's miserable out, staying home, watching some movies. I'm a movie buff. There's probably a movie that I haven't seen.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Oh, great question. I'd have to say Field of Dreams.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's a classic.
Yeah,
I'm gonna argue it's a classic.
I like that. The Natural, Rudy, sports movies.
Ooh,
Rudy,
love
sports
that
movies, Hoosiers. Yeah, because everything in my life revolved around sports growing up. Yeah, I love movies. And my wife and I sometimes will have to flip a coin to see whether we watch one of her Bridget Jones' Diary movies for the 100th time, or whether I go to one of my sports movies. But I love sports movies. I love feel good movies.
What is, if you could recommend one must read book to anyone, what would that be?
I'm a Tom Clancy guy.
Okay.
So the Sum of All Fears. But one of the books that I will always remember in college that it was a must read, Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. That was an amazing book.
I haven't read that book. I know of the author, of course.
She's an amazing woman, had an incredible life, became a Pulitzer Prize winner. Yeah, that's a book for every young student to read. And then you have your classics, Animal Farm, etc. But Maya Angelou was really a transformative book for students to read. How that woman, what she wrote, really impacted my life.
All right, there's a nugget. Now, before we wrap up, how do people find you? If there's some burning question that on something that we have not covered today, how do people find you to?
I have, through this campaign to the town of Fairhaven, spent a tremendous amount of time in putting my beliefs, my viewpoints out on social media. So they can message me, they can reach out to my webpage, electrictrapilo.com, and I'm available.
This has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you taking your time. You've been very generous with your time. I wish you the very, very best on your campaign.
Thank you.
And for those listening, watching, and all the things, please get out and vote. Election Day in Fairhaven is June 9th.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap.